good evening, my friends. It is Sanctuary Online, and we have an unruly crew already, and the call has just barely begun. So I had a feeling tonight was going to be a little bit that way anyway. I'm not sure if it's the full moon. Is that beautiful? Have you been outside those few nights? Ellen taking pictures, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Looking off your back porch. Oh, such a gorgeous moon. And we've had some temperate weather down here in Texas. So, you know, before it plunges into the freezing again tomorrow or the next day. It's been one of these things, you know, so we take it when we can. Anyway, welcome to everyone to our second night in a series. So we're excited about this. I'm going to quickly run through some admin and then hand this baby over to Kristen Vandermeer again, who's been our guest facilitator for this series. Can we just do some of these? Thank you, Kristen. Wasn't she great last week? Yeah, give it up. We got some.
Yeah.
There's definitely. What's that called? Aaron, you don't even know.
You're dabbing.
It's a football trophy. Come on.
Dabbing.
No, it's a football trophy. It's not jazz hands event. What is
Heisman?
it, people? The Heisman. Thank you very much. I knew there was a word. Thank you.
No, that's this.
Goodness gracious alive. Okay, so my friends, we want to, hopefully you can see those slides popping up now. And as usual, you know, you've been here before, so you know Sanctuary is all about the community. So two things, when we have slides open like this, you know, often you get popped into just a little string of the people. And if you go up onto the right-hand side, there's a little Rubik's Cube. You can whack on that and pull the people out so you can see everybody again, because we love to see your faces. We love to kind of be sitting around the living room, just chatting. And so speaking of chatting, if you'd love to, you could open your chat box and type in your first and last name, maybe your email address if we don't have it yet. And also, if you love that Tuesday reminder from Barb, one of the things we do that I think is very fun, and I appreciate it, every Tuesday in the afternoon, I get a little text that says, "Hey, Joby, it's Tuesday." And it's from Barb, and she lets us know what's going on. So if you give us your cell phone number, we will send you a text on Tuesday. We will not spam you. Here's the deal. We send you one text a week. We send you one email a week. We're very careful. We love and appreciate you. But we do like to let you know what's going on. And that's giving you a link to our YouTube channel. All of our recordings are on our YouTube channel or also on our Facebook page, which is called Sanctuary in the Woods. And of course, you can email us anytime you want to chat talk to us at sanctuaryinthewoods.com. One of us will pick it up and have a little chat with you and get back with you. So I have some big news. Now, many of you may have attended last year in November of 2020, we had the 2020 annual meeting. The funny thing about that was the year had not ended yet. So we thought, let's think about this. How about if we let 2021 end? And then we have been spending way too many hours evaluating the, what did you call them, Ken? Remarkable accomplishments we made over the last year. Really, really remarkable progress we've made both here on the property and preparing to build on the property, as well as with Sanctuary Online. So we would love it if you would come this Sunday. Watch this. I know. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? I know. Animation is my thing. There you go. This Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time. It's going to be just about an hour. We're not gonna take your whole afternoon, but we'd love to share not only the progress we made in 2021, but definitely what we're set up for in 2022. And like many organizations, we now have two tracks, an on-property track and an online track. So we'll share that with you. Woo! And Ken Martin, one of my favorite stories that you tell of you and Tom is connected to Martin Luther King. And as yesterday was Martin Luther King Day, we did not want to let that day pass without sharing for a moment. So Ken, all yours, my friend. But you need to unmute, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Joby. Yes, in 1995, 1,000 LGBTQ members of metropolitan churches from all over the world, along with a lot of our allies, gathered in Atlanta for our general conference. And we were there. We had hundreds of us marched to the King Center, where we held a big rally for racial justice. It was covered by all of the news media in Atlanta. Reverend Troy Perry was interviewed by all of the daily TV shows. A number of us were interviewed for stories that appeared in the media every day, the talk of the town. I mean, you put 1,000 queer people in the city, and you don't have to ask for it. Well, they give it to you. You know, I grew up in the late 40s and 50s and 60s. And so I knew this church in Atlanta. I had seen it in newsreels. I had seen pictures of it in newspapers, because so many events in the civil rights movement happened in and around that church. It was Dr. King's home church. He grew up in that church. His father was a pastor there in Oregon for decades. And then he became a pastor there. But I had never been to that church, and I really wanted to go. We're in Atlanta. Tom and I took a taxi, and we arrived at Ebenezer Church just as the 11 o'clock worship was beginning. We walked up those massive steps, and just as we entered into the narthex, an usher met us. Ground floor was just packed, and then he pointed to some stairs and said, "Balcony is full too, but you can want to." So Tom and I walked up those steps, and another usher met us at the top of the steps. Only 2 seats left in the balcony, and he pointed folding chairs that had been set up against the wall in the last pew. Over on only 2 seats left were the 2 farthest seats corner. And so Tom and I, apologized and to finally get into those 2 last seats over in that corner. And the service began, the senior staff came in, and the assistant pastor was a young African-American woman who stood up and did the announcements. And at the end of the announcement, she said, "We have a tradition here at we like to recognize from other churches. And so if you're a clergy denomination, just stand up wherever I point at you, tell us your name and what church you are." So I thought, she's never going to see me up here in this little anyway. And she recognized several people on the ground floor at me. And she said, "Way up there in the balcony, in the corner, real loud so we can hear you, tell us your name and what church." Now, by this time, there was nobody in Atlanta who didn't know who we were. So I said, "I'm Reverend Ken Martin, and I'm Metropolitan Community Church in Austin." Now, the senior pastor of that church, American man, he'd been sitting in this big chair over at the side, had his Bible open on his lap. He'd been looking down. When I said Metropolitan Community Church, I saw him slowly look up at me like this. On the wall, right beside his chair, and he pushed a button. And when he pushed that button, start blinking on a phone on the wall up in the balcony. And the same usher that had brought us to our seat, told us about our seats, went to them, and he picked it up, and he listened for a couple of minutes ahead, and then he hung it up, and at the same looked down, and the pastor was hanging up his phone. Then that usher came over to the end of our row and motioned for to come out. And so we again and got out. And as soon as we were out, the usher said, "Please." And he led us down in the balcony to the very front pews in the balcony. And right in the center, a pew. And it was cordoned off with a big gold. And he removed the rope and he looked at me. This pew is reserved for our past special guests. And our pastor wonders, friend, would be his very special guests today. Tom and I ended up worshiping in Dr. Martin Luther King's home church as the special guests. That could have happened in any of those big old megas dot that every corner of that city. That could only happen because of Dr. legacy of inclusion and justice.
Thank you, Ken. I think I've heard that story 100 times. I love it every time I hear it. I hope that wasn't too choppy. It was a little choppy for me. I'm not sure if that's my internet or if that was Ken's internet, but either way, thank you. It's good for you, Kristen? Good, good, good. Then it's us out here in the woods. Well, I want to just offer you one more quick reminder of what's coming. And I still wrote this slide wrong. What I want you to know is tonight we're talking about our professional lives, how COVID over the last 22 months has affected many of us. So even though it says personal there on the slide, it means professional. Just do that transformation in your brain. But I want to remind you that we're taking a break next week because the end of the month is always our book club conversation. So for those of you who are reading this amazing book, The Personal Secretary, keep on reading, keep on reading, keep on reading. It's going to be a phenomenal conversation. And then the next Sunday or Tuesday, we come back to talk about what is COVID, how has COVID impacted our spiritual lives? And I think that's going to be, again, as vibrant a conversation as tonight. And then all I can do is remind you once again of Sunday afternoon's annual meeting. I just hope I see all of you there. We've got a special seat right in the front of the balcony with a special gold rope cordoned off just for you to be our special guest this Sunday. All right, Kristen, make me stop. Many of you met Kristen last week. Kristen and I go way back. That might come out in some conversation tonight, but we were actually both facilitators for an international bank moons ago, right, Kristen? 15 years ago, moons. Just yesterday, whatever it was, doesn't matter between friends once you hit 60. Not that you've hit 60, but one of us has hit 60. And Kristen's an amazing professional facilitator, and she was just gracious enough to say yes when we asked her to host this series. And so, Kristen, I am turning the ropes over to you, and I'm going to mute myself. It's all yours, girl.
All right. And I'm going to say hello to everybody again. Hello, hello, hello. I think everybody here has been on with me in the past, so I probably don't need to introduce myself too much, but like Joby said, we worked together many, many years ago and do read The Personal Librarian. I stumbled on this group because of book club and so happy haven't been able to get rid of me since then. But as Joby said, we are today going to talk about I did write what hath COVID wrought. I'm sorry, Joby. You kept using the word wrought. I had to use hath instead of has. So what hath COVID wrought? We're going full all in on the Shakespeare tonight. But the impact on our professional lives. So we talked last week about personal lives, and there's some pain. There was certainly change, no doubt about that. And there was also a lot of silver lining, and we ended on talking about what's that silver lining that we want to make as we go forward into all of this. So we're gonna have a similar conversation tonight about our professional lives, about our careers, and I'll bring the slides up and down as we talk about people. Going to be calling on some people to share specifically, but want to set the stage with some statistics to begin with, right? So we come to this community to be educated sometimes, and then also to discuss and share. And so the immediate impact of COVID, and I've got some numbers that are specific to the US. know we got some Canadians on here, but I'm going to give some US stats that are specific here. It is very similar, maybe not the numbers, but the general impact across the world. Food services, hospitality and leisure, health and beauty services. And health and beauty services, I'm talking about like your facials, your massages, whether you considered that for your health or just to be beautiful. These things shut down, and they shut down immediately. And as we are already here in 2022, I want to share with you some numbers from 2020 that were put together at the beginning of 2021, which is that in the US, they did a study. They believe that the working hours lost over the year 2020, the equivalent to 255 million full-time jobs, not 255 million hours, 255 million full-time jobs, 3.7 trillion in lost labor income for people who were not able to work, right? And now that's whether they personally couldn't work, whether their company shut them down, whether the industry was shut down. That was the impact there. Even far, we're still in the pandemic, but as far in as December 2020, over 498,000 jobs were lost in leisure and hospitality alone. Now that's over a year ago. That was in 1 month. Jobs that were on hold were no longer there, as you know, small businesses or even larger restaurants just realized they couldn't support. Gyms couldn't support. Hotels couldn't support. Just couldn't keep the people on any longer. Bars and restaurants alone were down 372,000. And this COVID, 9.6 million US workers lost their jobs. Again, we saw the same thing across much of the world in countries of similar economic status, but that was what the impact was there so very quickly. But that's the stats, right? That's the numbers. We want to talk about the stories and the stories that are behind that. So, I know we have some people who were impacted here on this call. I'm going to start by calling on our normal host, Jo Bell. Jo B here. A lot of you know her career started in the military. I mean, everybody needs a free education, right? Just go get that ride and stick around for a while. But Jo B did the military as a career all in until corporate America, which is where she and I met she and I met as she was already transitioning out of corporate into the entrepreneurial spirit in a corporate role, consulting for corporations. But you made a lot of changes, Joby. So you want to talk to us a little bit about, for all the changes that you had in the 20, 30 years before COVID, 40 years leading up to COVID. I don't want to age you, even though you just announced it. How did COVID hit you and your professional career?
Well, and thank you, Kristen. And please let me know if I'm breaking up. I'm feeling like my internet's pretty unstable here tonight. As you said, I did 10 years in the Marine Corps. That's where I met Lisa Talbot. How fun. So that means, Lisa, we've known each other for 40 years. Lisa and I met at Officer Candidate School in the Marine Corps. And I did that gig, obviously, first to pay for college, but then fell in love with airplanes and flight lines and the world and the travel, and did that for 10 years until I don't know what number of surgery I had, but they couldn't fix my leg anymore. I had multiple surgeries, left and went into corporate. Again, that's where I met you, Kristen, in operations initially, and then went into training and development. But then I really think that at a certain point in time, I was trying to think why I left the whole entrepreneurial bug. And I'm not even sure I remember, but I was done with selling my soul to a corporation who didn't really care. I love the company. I still work for the company as a consultant, but I think when my mentor died, he was the CEO, about to become chairman of the board of that company. And it was this amazing, monumental thing, his death. And, just if you could imagine the trickles through the company. And I was interviewed by him when I came into the company. And so he stayed a mentor to me. But after he left, and after all the rumblings, the company just kept going. And I thought, goodness, if someone of that, influence in an organization can leave and that organization keep going, I am a little tiny cog in a really big wheel. Left to do the entrepreneur thing. And you've known I've done that. I've built kind of an executive coaching business and consulting business, facilitation business. I write leadership curriculum, do all those types of things. But at the end of the day, I think I'd worked myself up to working rarely and with senior executives. And it was expensive work because I would take people off site and do interventionist work with their team. And I would be hired for a series of time with a group. And Cheryl can remember this for sure, because it was I stopped working in November. I didn't take any more work because I was marrying my daughter in February. So there's a 4-month gap of income, like you didn't generate any income. We came back from Mexico after the wedding, and days later I was canceled, and then I just stayed canceled. So a really nice 6-figure job, complete independence, do the work I want to do, when I want to do it, for who I want to do it, that kind of life. And suddenly we had a lot of bills and zero income coming in, and even no recovery. I think that's the one thing, Kristen, about, you'll hear from some other people tonight. In my industry, belly to belly, traveling with people, it didn't recover. It was not going to recover. It will not recover. So no matter how hard I worked, if I wanted to rebuild, I couldn't rebuild that business. It's never going to exist again, at the level that I worked at. Aaron, I think you as a speaker, same thing. It's like speaking to large groups has changed. And so for me, I think the biggest thing, Aaron or Kristen, is my industry and a business I built for about 20 years was just gone overnight. So yeah. So it impacted us.
I think about it, it did, right? It impacted your income, but I think also about all the people who were using your services who were impacted. As somebody who you and I met doing leadership training, I loved those programs. And I worked for a company that was just starting to ramp up and run some of those, where you had multi-day courses, and we were talking about doing off-sites and things like that. And it dried up, right? I think when you and I talked, gone is the 3-day retreat, and now 3 days of 8 hours a day on a Zoom training. You don't pay attention the same way that you would at a conference or a convention. So yeah, you lost both of it, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Dr. Aaron, what's your yellow Windex? Oh no, that was Joby. You're responding
that was
to
me.
you.
I just think what Aaron was said, go ahead, Aaron. So powerful there.
The pandemic created new problems that some industries could then be the solution for. And so health and wellness, horrific circumstances. And so just some industries were obliterated, and some were totally like interior design and all sorts of things, went up.
Well, and I think, it's important to note, it depends like where you sit in the industry, right? So certainly fitness industry is something that changed. I know that's near and dear to you, but, I know for me, there was one of those 24-hour fitness gyms had been built and opened, I think in January or February of 2020, and they're gone. That's an empty building. It's not there anymore. But I know 3 people who bought Pelotons. Like, who would not have, and that's an expensive piece of equipment to put in your house. So are you the guy who was going to be a trainer at the 24-hour anytime fitness and your job is gone? Or are you the Peloton salesperson who just blew your goals, out of the water? And which way does that go? So like all kinds of different things. One of the other stats I had, I'm stat heavy tonight. So guys, please jump in with your stories. But I'm definitely.
I want to raise my hand.
We talked about. Yeah, who's got their hand up?
It's Ellen.
Right, yeah, hey Ellen.
Hi. So it's interesting, have seen kind of maybe the opposite of that. And in my organization, because I work in software support, but and it's been interesting finding people, but we went through this phase about a year ago where people went, I don't want to be doing this anymore. They were like, it's like it was like they had time to finally sit and think about what they were doing, what they really wanted to do. And I had this very good friend that I had risen up in the ranks from the frontline person doing something. He was a developer, to being a people manager, because our company tends to wrongfully, in my opinion, in most cases, move people that are good at their jobs into people manager jobs, because if you're good at your job, you must be able to manage people that are good at that too. And this real good friend of mine was like, I don't want to be a people manager, never wanted to be a people manager, and yet they have me being a people manager. I want to go be a developer again. I want to go back to that. And he quit and went, and I'm sure that he has a job already because he was that good. But I've seen, he's not the only one. I mean, I think I've heard it called the Great Resignation. And it's not just, and it's that people, it's not just that they're not going to take it anymore, because I think there is some of that where maybe people have been mistreated over the years and are just like, yeah, no, you can't treat me that way anymore. But there are other people that are evaluating where they are in their lives, where they thought they would be in their lives, and have come up with this is not the path that I want to take. I got pushed into this path. Now I want to course correct and go do something else. And I think that's something that I've seen more of.
Yeah, that course correction's huge. Absolutely.
You're muted, Ken.
It's a great time to take the choice. And I saw Lisa with her hand up, and then I'll jump over to you, Ken. I see yours too.
Yeah.
Lisa, what were you going to share? Here.
Yeah, I was just going to share how the instructions for unmuting. So, interestingly, not technically part of the Great Resignation, not technically COVID related job loss, but certainly in the midst of all of this that was going on, I wanted to just touch base a little bit on healthcare and a little bit on what we experienced. I'm still in some contact with the people that are on the front lines. I work for an oncology practice, and number one how many years ago now, but in early 2020, we switched gears and we figured it out. And but it was super interesting. How do we protect our patients? How do we continue to treat our patients? It was protecting our staff, and then the shortages that arose. And one of my new resume bullets is around bootlegging, because I ended up at a distillery getting hand sanitizer that was made in a whiskey distillery in Frederick, Maryland. And, I dressed appropriately for the day. I had my hat and, the whole fedora thing going on. I didn't have a Tommy gun or anything, but I definitely was carrying some liquor that day that we ended up using as hand sanitizer. And just the stress that brought on the doctors and the nurses, in full gear, in because we didn't know what COVID was at that point. And and then today I actually had to go get tested for COVID. I've got a procedure later this week, and the gals are in a full-on Lowe's or Home Depot shed that they have converted for those the three healthcare workers that were in that little building today. And it was one of the drive-through setups. So some of you might have experienced that as well. But not only where they, it's freezing here. We just got through that major from our driveway, and those gals were there. I had to call the hospital to do like a pre-registration. Those people were there. And, just the incredible stress and the stress that many folks have been put under to, if you want to keep your job, instead of it being a choice, if you want to keep your job, you need to get vaccinated. It was okay for them to keep their job and work all the hours and work hours covering their mates that had, contracted COVID, and to work all of those hours and under that stress and pressure. But all of a sudden now you keep your job, you get vaccinated. And, I think that I don't want to go political or anything like that. I'm just speaking to the stress that the healthcare environment is in. The good news, at least up until the point I left in April, we did not, in April of 2021, we had not let anyone go. So the folks were able to continue in their professions, from billing to actually administering chemotherapy and other treatments and so on. So that was pretty cool. And there's a large amount of worry and concern from a business aspect that how are we going to continue to stay solvent? As former President Trump left, he signed a executive order that basically instructed that it was like the top 20 or top 17 drugs, most expensive drugs would have to be, you could only charge in the United States what we charge our most favored nations. And 13 of the drugs on the list were chemotherapy drugs. And so that put people into a tizzy as well. So side impacts, all the impacts, that kind of thing. I don't want to dominate the conversation personally, leaving in April of 2021, I just jotted down a couple of notes and then I'll be quiet if that's possible.
Yeah, please
I don't know,
share.
Joel. So one of the things, and I've been so blessed with this community, as well as my direct marketing community, several other communities that have taken me under their wing and held me close and comforted me, had me question things that I needed to question, coming out of pretty much a corporate environment that I was loyal to and had lived in, and had driven long commutes to get to. And that was gone. So had to figure out what that is. And even to this day, the thing that there are a few notes that I wanted to leave you with, and that was, you have imagined shackles, even while they're not real. That you continue in fruitless efforts for others' benefit.
Yeah.
And then I'm only now realizing the depth of acquiescence of my identity.
Wow. Deep
And
thoughts.
wow. So I think, I'm still working on those things, and they're precious things. And I think that, the gifts, this kind of, because my identity was so wrapped up in the professional, I know our topic last week was personal impact, but this was a personal impact because of what happened professionally. And I think that, some of those things are around those people that we cherish.
Right.
And, my husband's a bit older than I am. I call him the crusty old Marine, but he's very handsome and charming and amazing. And he's a fantastic partner. And, even till I walked in the door to take over his I Love Me room, tonight, he was asking what he could do for me. And so, that's something that is I basically, dang it, you guys, Sanctuary every darn time. Start the tears, start the misty eyes. I missed 4 years.
I do have a question for you, Lisa, if it's not
Sure.
too deep, but we're going deep here. So you didn't necessarily lose your job because of COVID, but you lost your job during COVID.
Right.
The steps you've taken, the path you've taken, the thoughts you've thunk since then, how do you think those would be different if we weren't in this pandemic state of the
You-
world?
You
She would
know,
still
think
be
they
in
would
her
be?
job. She would still be in her freaking job, wasting away on the highway.
potentially,
Sorry.
potentially, I think there's another piece though is we are all in a struggle. We are being tested. Hopefully we are being tested in fire. And one of the thoughts, one of our friends had posted just yet another post of struggle and asking for prayers. And my prayer was that God doesn't let our hearts be hardened through all of this. We need to be compassionate. We need to love. It is very easy, and Joby's known me for a really long time, sucking it up, continuing to march, see the hill, take the hill. That buries so many things. And we need to, it's kind of I was asking because there's so many people that are suffering, they're dying, they're dealing with COVID, they're dealing with life, they're dealing with so many things. We all are. And in that dealing, it would be easy to shut down. It would be easy to completely close and harden our hearts and say, I got mine. But I don't think that's what this time is about. And I think I know I missed the call last week, and I think that I saw something about silver linings. And, if we come through this with nothing more than caring for each other at a deep personal level, regardless of, I've said I love you more than I've said in my, not being afraid of those words and not being afraid of the depth of feeling that comes with the true feeling of love. And, putting, if you'll excuse me, putting the bullshit aside and just loving each other in such a time as this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And right, that's, I think, what Ellen was talking about, those time for reflection. Maybe it's not the I'm fed up with it, but it's the time to think about it, time to find your path, time to dig deep, right? That comes to you. I mean, I am still blessed to have my day job, but Joby knows I'm so frustrated with it. And Lisa, you and I talked recently as well too. So frustrated with it. But part of that, the ability to realize I'm frustrated with it, is from sitting in this room for 12 hours
Kristen.
a day or 8 hours a day, not going out and coming back. So it's right, slowing down and doing it. And I think, Ken, you got your hand up again. I think that was Ellen's thought before that maybe prompted you too.
Yes,
Go
it
ahead,
was,
Ken.
because this idea that COVID either made us or gave us the opportunity to step back and have time to evaluate what we do routinely and just almost mechanically is such a powerful one. And I'm thinking back to 10 years ago, long before COVID, the Alban Institute, which was an institute which is out of business now, but it was the premier institute in this country that studied worshiping communities. They published a study that most churches give their pastors or clergy a sabbatical of 3 to 6 months after 7 years of service. And what they were publishing 10 years ago is that 1 out of every 3 pastors who took a sabbatical retired or resigned when they came back from their sabbatical, because it gave them an opportunity to step back and look at what their lives were actually like and how much richer their lives felt when they weren't inside that routine. And what's happening right now among the worshiping communities in the United States is even more impactful than that. The Roman Catholic Church just announced that so many of their priests have resigned since COVID that they're bringing 10,000 priests from Africa to try to fill positions of churches in the United States, because priests are just leaving in flocks. And so it is that idea that given the opportunity to evaluate our lives, or even being forced to evaluate our lives, might bring about really radical changes. And one of the things I think about is, what is the impact of this going to be 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in our society? Because there's this huge, just fundamental shift going on in terms of the whole idea of occupation and vocation and labor.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ken,
well
I have a
said, Ken.
question. I have a question
Yep.
for Ken. Ken, one of the things that I've been so thankful for in our talks is historical reference that you bring us. It has to be the Industrial Revolution that has put us in this space. And what would be your take on this? That we've come to this position, because I know it hasn't been always this way.
No, it has not. This is largely a function of moving from an agrarian to an industrial society. In an agrarian society, people had much more control over their own time and labor and lives. They could structure their own days. Their families were their work partners, not strangers, but their own families, their children, their grandchildren, their grandparents, and so forth. And so, yes, a lot of the dissatisfaction with the idea of work is a result of that move from the agrarian to the industrial society, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Definitely. And Ken, one of the other stats I found is how much this is now accelerating more automation, more advances in AI, and these low-income jobs that the Industrial Revolution created are the ones that are going to be the most impacted and go away, right? So it's like a catch-22 and all of that. Absolutely. And yeah, I see, Dr. Aaron, I see your comment in there about, people surviving or asleep at the wheel. And I think there's a couple themes here, right? So there's the people who are like, God, why have I been slogging through this job all along? Wake up. I think there's another category of the job is not the same as it used to be. And Lisa alluded to, some doctors and nurses and medical professionals that are being called on with different requirements, whatever those may be. Certainly school teachers have gotten the short end of the stick. It's a different job. As Ken has said, pastors, ministers, preachers, the job has changed, and it may not be a job that they want to have in this world. But I think there's also another story of people who loved what they were doing and it was taken away. And I'd be remiss if we didn't get a chance to hear from Yvette. Yvette, if you don't mind me calling you out to share your story. I know you did not wake up and choose to leave. You had this other side of having it taken. Would you mind sharing with us?
Not at all, not at all. I'll start in a place that I don't know if I've shared before. I may have. Is that I was 23 plus years in corporate America. I worked for 2 500 Fortune companies. One was a pharmaceutical company in Virginia, and the other was Coca-Cola in Atlanta. So I was a corporate structured person, someone that had grown up into the corporate and moved up the ladder. And then one day after the kids got into college, a freshman and a senior, it just came out of nowhere, but I know now that it was divine source, that I just was like, I'm selling the house and I'm moving. And they're going like, what the hell? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Quitting your job? You've been there for 19 years. And I'm like, I haven't been anywhere. I haven't done anything. And so that would let me to leave Virginia and make my way to Atlanta and then to California. So, and in California, my story of going to school, getting my education and building my company. And those 15 years of after I graduated with my associates and building, it was like I had my passion, I had my love, I had my joy. I got up at 4:30 in the morning. I'd go work out. I mean, I loved my yoga. I loved my cycling at the cycle bar. I'd go get rejuvenated, come home, I'd do my juicing. I had my healthy eating going on. And then I take my first client at 7:30 in the morning. And every therapist I know starts at 10 or 11 o'clock. when I would tell people that I'm starting at 7:30, they would go like, are you crazy? And I'm going like, no, that's when I had my energy. And I was capturing the people that needed to come in before their workday. My passion was to help people, and it still is, to stay out of pain, to move the body, to have mobility, to have flexibility. Anyone that came to me with issues, it was just like, I didn't know if I could up here, it wasn't here, that I didn't know that I could help them, but I was just like, okay, come on in, let's see what we can do. And by my embracing and opening myself up, the gift came through me. And so everyone I was able to help. I was greeted with hugs, I was released with hugs, I was greeted with love. And that's just how my day went. It was like so much joy. I didn't go to work every day. Actually, I never went to work any day because it wasn't work to me. This was just a joy of my giving, and I got paid for it. And so, I was sharing over the weekend with Lisa, Kristen, 17, 18, and 19 were my years of I entered at 6-figure level, and it was just like, wow, it was so exciting. And that morning of the March 2020, when the email came through, and it was just like, because of COVID, massage therapists in the state of California have to cease work, hands off, no therapy. And I finished my day, but I was just like, now, how long is this going to last? And I had no idea that that would be my last day of work. And it was such something just pulled from me. It was like my everything. I love this more than anything. One of the things that I had put in, and I'm just realizing this, like just very, very recent, is that, and I'll go back to 2017, and that's when my daughter had triplets. And and we always talked about how I would come back and how I would have that, that relationship with the babies. And so what happened was I was able to fly back every 6 weeks, every 8 weeks. It was nothing for me to fly, and be back home with them. Mm-hmm. And so that March, that was yanked from me. So my time that I had put in with the company, with people, my earnings that I was making, my love and timeshare with my family, my everything, the place where I lived, everything. It was just like no more except for the aid of the state. And that was something that was very hard for me to accept. It made me very humble because I had never in my life had help from anybody else. It was like, I'm going to go out there ever since I was 16 years old, and I'm going to do this. This is what I want. This is what I'm going after. But I was right now at a place where it had taken everything. And it's like, just threw my hands up, God, whatever's out there for me, I can't worry about it. And so I did end up dissolving the company because by 6 months, 7 months later, it was like $11,000 in rent that I owe. And it's like, where the heck am I going to get that from?
Right. Yeah. You can't pay for a building you can't work in.
No, and the monies, the system is so crazy because y'all remember when we had to fill out applications, I believe it was 3, it might've been 4, but I know for sure that it was 3 applications for grant money or loans money or something for businesses that they were giving out, right? And all of these corporations is getting the money. And I was like, well, what about the micro business? So I was part of that.
Yeah.
And so little did I know, after we decided to dissolve, and that was because of my CPA and bookkeeper consulting with them. I came back home, and it was in like a month later, 6 weeks later, Labor Day, that I was called and was introduced to APL. And it was like, I was invited to look at a presentation. I saw the opportunity, and I was just like, oh my God. I was just like, I saw the opportunity, and I saw a possibility, but on the one thing that I didn't know for sure, for absolute sure, was the product. Because they said the word candy, and I'm a massage therapist, and I've been in health and wellness, and I'm just like, yeah, well, here I am going popping candy to everybody. And but I took it upon myself after I got off that call and did some, Googling, and found a book, a scientific manual that shared the information about these drops. And I found a few videos by, Mary Esther, and I read those, looked at those, and I was just like, oh my God, what in the world is this? I said, this is God, this is from God. I just knew that.
Have you ever done direct sales before? Did you ever think you would?
No, I dabbled in essential oils and herbs and teas, but I just offered it to my clients. I never built a business. No, because I had my clients and I was serving them, and I wasn't gonna push product on them. It's like I had it, I believed in it, and I shared it, and they bought it. And with this, it was just like, oh my goodness. So anyway, I saw an opportunity where I could possibly earn what I was making. And then, but I had to have belief in the product. And it was my grandson that gave me my testimonial that you all have heard. And once that testimonial, and I see how he's still continuing to evolve by taking, the product, I was like, I've got to share this. And that's where I am right now. It's like, I got to share this. In order to be of service, I have to share it. I can't keep it to myself. And it's up to everybody else to make the choice to use it. But I do believe that my clients, if I tell them something, they're going to believe it. But I had to believe it in myself first.
So you had quite the roller coaster. And I had the chance to work with you on that too. And I love, just in the short time I've known you, I think you and I first met a week or two before you left California. You were actually moving, I think, the first time you and I ever spoke together. And I love watching you go through this, like your demeanor, your facial expression, the first time I met you and where you were on that journey and where you are today is amazing. But yeah, I don't want to, go too far into that. And I'm trying to watch the time here too. But, I think we are here from 3 key examples who were impacted, who were in, good roles, entrepreneurial roles, changes that were pushed upon them in a lot of ways like that too. But and Joby talks about the side hustle. There's some stats that come out of that. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to switch between a couple of screens here myself too. These are 2022 numbers. This is brand new. It says 45% of working Americans report having a side hustle. It's roughly 70 million people. Among millennials, that statistic rises to 50%. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's all, direct marketing, network marketing, like Yvette has, but some sort of side hustle, some business that they're doing on their own. And that the numbers out of that too were 30% are doing it because they have to make more money, but 60% are doing it to have something more, to have something extra. So there's, a little bit of everything to it. But sorry, and I do want to go back to some other things too. So, we talked to different people. Yvette talked about, her job being as a massage therapist. And I think maybe Joby said it, maybe somebody else did, but gosh, what's about to be one of her clients that was being helped so much. And I just want to take this one more direction. And I'm well aware that we're at the top of the hour, but if you could all bear with me a little bit longer. Any of you lose a service provider? Anybody lose your favorite restaurant, go out of business? Did your, I know people, seems like everybody in New Jersey is a realtor now, but they used to be an actor on Broadway. But wow. Yeah, no, I personally, I just found a new hair salon that's a block and a half from my house. I could walk there, and then they closed. What other people lost a service, lost a provider? I see some heads nodding. Peter, did your head nod? Oh, Glenda, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to comment for a moment. I am retired. I am a snowbird and I spend the winter in Arizona, and my home is in Toronto, Ontario. And one of the company in British Columbia that created a cell service for Canadians crossing the US border. And I hired them, or I bought their product for 5 consecutive years. They were called Roam Mobility, ROAM. Perfect name for a company like that. And as soon as COVID hit, that was their whole company, and nobody's traveling. Nobody needs a cell phone for the other side of the border because you can't cross the border anyway. And they died. They went down. They never were. They had an infrastructure that they needed to fund and to manage, and they had zero income coming, so they had to go out of business. And it was an amazing company.
Yeah. No, it's a shame.
Kristen, if I may, just one more quick comment.
Please.
I know we're running out of time. And I know the purpose of this hour is to share our stories, but I would like to highlight the impact of the last 2 years on the 20-somethings and 30-somethings. 2 things have happened. First of all, they did not ever develop the loyalty to their employer that many of us did. I did certainly over the years, because their world was not our world. And they were job jumping as much as they should, as we should have too, but we
Probably, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that the notion that they are on some kind of a corporate or a governmental subsidy for a short period of time, they've got their whole life ahead of them. This is not something that they're ticking off boxes. There's another year gone, another year gone. And I think that for those that have been impacted by it, we're seeing a tremendous impact on mental health in the 20s and 30s somethings, and in their siblings and in their children, because the mood in those homes, 2 young parents of 4 little kids, all of a sudden they're not employed. There's no future ahead. Company's gone. They're 29 years old and there's no future. I just feel so privileged to have been working in the world when I was, and to be able to come out this end as financially secure as I am. And I am one of very few people around the world that can feel that comfort. So I just want us to think a little bit about the youth of the world and no hope.
Well, hopefully there is hope there, Glenda, but you're absolutely right. They're definitely strongly impacted. You say 2030s, whether the career that they chose to go into isn't there, or if they're, early 20s and trying to decide what career to go into. And that's changed. And even schooling has changed, right?
Yeah.
I did actually have more slides, and I don't even know if they make sense now. I think we already said it, but I'll just share this real quickly. Long-term remote work and virtual meetings. And Joby talked about this in her consulting job, and those are not really coming back fully. Saw stat, they expect 20% of business travel is never going to come back. So that's jobs like Joby's, but that's also the airlines. It's the restaurants in the airports. It's the hotels at the convention centers. If you want to go to Vegas for fun, there might not be as many flights because there's nobody going there for business. Right. So that is not expected to come back. That is down for good. Accelerating automation and AI. Ken and Lisa both talked about, the Industrial Revolution, and talked about, well, now even more so, these other jobs, food service, customer service, sales. One McKinsey study predicts in the US, those jobs could fall by another 4.3 million on the low wage jobs. And I think Dr. Aaron mentioned, other industries are up. Online shopping is up, right? We all know Bezos is doing just fine, but trucking industry up, but not up enough to replace the jobs that are lost. And so my graphic here, we found is a change of skills is going to be needed. And it's interesting, we spent so much time talking about how much we do, or if because we had time to, or not, that the future of jobs is going to need more social and emotional skills that those are the roles that are going to actually exist and have out there. And we talked a lot about, Pat, how nice would it be to say, I love my job? You know, another stat that I found is something like 37% of people could actually say they loved their job if they worked for somebody else. And 76% of people said they loved their job if they're working for themselves, whether that's an, you know, entrepreneur, the way we think of it that way, or we talked about side hustles a little bit, and things like that too. So I do want to be respectful of your time, but I want to throw it back to the group one more time and just talk a little bit about what anyone's taking away from this, what you're thinking about either your career, or if you're retired, maybe your kids, your grandkids, your favorite salon that's not there anymore. What are our takeaway thoughts?
I'll jump in and say that that's one of the things that I considered or have been thinking about lately. I could look at it two ways. I turned 65 in December, and it's like I'm at retirement age, so I can just sit back, kick my feet, and it's like I'll be everything and just be kosher. But that's not where my heart is. It's not where my passion is. And it's like I still have a desire to go out there. And so even though I could look at COVID as, you know, my way out and then just chill, I look at it as an opportunity to find a way and create a way to find myself weave myself into other people's lives to help them to overcome and build themselves up stronger to overcome this crisis at hand, because it can be one person at a time. If we look at it as a world thing, it's like, yeah, the globe needs addressing a health issue, but with one person at a time, it's kind of like one drop at the time. And I'm just using this as my method of getting myself back out there and loving on people and sharing with people, because it's not just a crisis of health, it's a crisis of joy, it's a crisis of love that we need right now. And so if we just pick a little segment that we can contribute, instead of just going to the, you know, oh, well, I'll just get my boosters or get my shot, put on my mask and shut the world out. Instead of taking that attitude, just make some contributions on I'm talking about me, making some contributions on a conscious level of like a right now level. That's where I am. And I feel like I found that opportunity to do that. And I look at that as my COVID blessing, because I will be able to experience more joy than I could only put my hand on one client at a time and get paid at one at a time. But what I'm into right now, that can happen over and over again. And I can have a larger impact on more people. That's what I feel for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So silver lining ahead for you. That's great. Ken, you want to give us gems? You're muted, Ken.
A lot of people have said this, but you know, we hear get back to normal. Let's get back to normal. But a lot of other people are saying, why don't we take this opportunity to say normal wasn't working? That's what all this is about. That's what all this dissatisfaction is about. Normal wasn't working, you know, so will we be smart enough, you know, to take this opportunity to create a new normal, which will be about the love and the trust and the things that Lisa talked about and Yvette talked about. You know, can we actually create a different and better world as a result of this? And admit that the reason all this dissatisfaction is bubbling to the surface is because normal wasn't working for us.
Yeah,
right.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. So true. Peter, you have some beautiful thoughts in the chat there. You want to sum it up or say anything to the group, or leave your typed words to speak for themselves? It's up to you.
Oh, I can speak. I don't have an awful lot to say beyond that, but I just really think that this is a time of being forged in fire, of fires of all different kinds, and we've been hearing some of the stories of the ways that we have been living through these times, these difficult times together. But I just have to believe that because obviously I'm a Christian minister, I believe that God is always preparing us for something better. And if God is preparing all of us to be, to go through this fire, to experience these moments, not that God causes us to experience bad things, but walks with us through these difficulties, then I have to believe, as now I'm taught, that on the other side, we are stronger, we are better, we are more able to hear, to listen, to touch, to feel, to be with one another. And where we might have gotten out of work and gone walking back to our personal life before, day in and day out, this period of time has certainly caused many of us to understand the importance of being in connection with one another, and that our relationships with one another is where it's really at, and everything else needs to stem from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something bright to hope for and look for.
So beautiful. So thank you. Thank you.
That's
So
so
much is
rad.
coming out of this, and right, that forged in fire, but yeah, move forward. You know, I'll just say, on a personal note, I've said to years for my friends, I don't regret anything I've ever done, because if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? Whatever I did, right or wrong at the time, it made the path that brought me to where I am. And I'll just say, on a personal note, I'll thank Joby and Cheryl and everyone for trusting me to lead these discussions last week, and this, and then whatever I might do in the future. Certainly this is where my passion is, and it's something I haven't had time to do for a while. And look, COVID gives me a chance to play with this again. So that's great. But thank you so much to everybody who shared. I wish we had more time. There's such deep discussions and such deep thoughts coming out of this. But I'm going to switch into a little bit of admin, and then, maybe we'll officially end, and everyone wants to keep talking, we'll see. But so we've got Joby, I think you said there was some kind of meeting on Sunday, something about an annual thing. Was that
Annual meeting, 3
Sunday,
p.m.
3 o'clock Central?
Central. Thanks, Kristen.
Sunday, 3 o'clock Central on Sunday. Next week, we're going to leave COVID behind for a moment. We're going to have our book club led by the beautiful and talented Cheryl. So we are reading The Personal Librarian. Thank you, Barb, for correcting that earlier. The
Ellen,
Personal
yeah.
Librarian. If you've not started it yet, as I've not, I've been assured that it reads smoothly and quickly. So go ahead and pick that up somewhere or download it, and do join us next Tuesday. And then the following Tuesday, we're going to come back to this series for the third part of our third-part series. And Joby's going to be leading the conversation as we talk about changes in spirit, in I don't know how we worship. What are we calling it? Changes in all the God stuff.
All the God stuff. Yeah.
Spiritual life.
Yeah, in our spiritual lives, Kristen. And we're actually thinking of extending even one more week into February 8th, where this concept of this has affected us spiritually, it's affected us professionally, it's affected us personally. And yet, Lisa, I love that you pick up the one thing that Kristen left us with last week about how there is a silver lining, but we're the ones that have to do the work to find it, to be it. I loved all the words tonight, Ellen and Peter and Glenda, and helping our young folks who they're not looking back on a career. They're like saying, what should I do in the world? So man, thank you, everyone. I hope these are just creating thoughtfulness and curiosity and creativity. And so many of us have said, be the solution, be the healer, be the answer. God bless. What a wonderful conversation, and what a wonderful group of people to be in the midst of all of this with. So Thank you again, Kristen. Appreciate you doing that, hosting us tonight.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Kristen, good job.
Thank you.
Read
Thank you to everybody who shared.
the book. See you on Tuesday. If not, see you the next Tuesday. Whatever you do, be safe out there. Love you all. Thanks, Lisa and Karen. Good to see you all. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.